So today we're just going to get right into it. Today is about startups, about the startup community, about words in the startup community, and how they affect what kind of business we're in, actually. So, as everyone knows, this television station, Fresh Factory TV, is related to the business Fresh Factory Inc., which, as we've gone through this series, we've decided that just hasn't been defined well enough. We decided that the description of what we do has not been crisp and concise enough to really explain exactly what we do. So, long story short, it is staffing for startups. I wish I would have known to say that several episodes ago, but today I digress and get to the point. So, while we were having this discussion amongst staff, what we were talking about was actually just, personal stuff, what you guys are doing, what they had going on, XYZ. And as this is an entrepreneurial group, everyone has their own side gigs and businesses, etc. So, there's one staffer who has a business that's coming up that involves multiple people and explained that, as the series goes along, that they were expecting to be able to learn lots of things about business, and that now that they've created their own startup, that they would be having a platform to basically get their information. And I was like, startup. So I need to start with what a startup is, because I've been saying business and startup so interchangeably around the business that there's really been no way for anyone to differentiate the difference. So today I'm going to make sure to explain word for word what each of these things mean, and hope to give a little quick rundown about startups and what they are, what they do, and how that could affect you. And hopefully this gives lots of information. So, okay. So a startup. What is a startup? Oh, and all of this information is going to be available on freshfactory.tv/episodes. Each of these episodes that we have information that we give out, we give it in a step-by-step plan, and then we also document it in a way that you can download the document that goes along with it, so that you can keep this information. So today, as I go through the words with the separate explanations of what they mean, you can also get this information that you can download for yourself on freshfactory.tv/episodes. Okay, so what is a startup? A startup is a business that most likely is technology based. The actual concept for startup by itself literally means the beginnings, start up. It is the intention to have something to grow larger than it began. So, in a very specific form, I normally say business. I normally say, we do this kind of work for this business, or we put together this team for businesses. And the real difference between a regular business or a small business or whatever kind of business and a startup is really, from the beginning, the intention is to not have it as a sole proprietorship. That the intention is not to keep the ownership with the people that it started with. The whole premise is to expand the ownership to others, whether that is through rapid growth, using things like investments from third parties, or investments that go all the way to the stock exchange. There are obviously various levels that those startups can take their business, but just on the most basic level, the intention from the beginning is to expand the ownership to more people than it began with. So that's the major premise. The small business, or the business in general that we speak of, we always think about that being something that we 100% own and pass on to either our loved ones, or we, give to our family, or our kids, or we might sell, but we never think about those businesses that we consider to be small businesses as something that we're going to share ownership in unless it started that way. So I know there's a lot of differences between startups and small businesses or regular businesses or whatever. But I think that the main catch on a startup is the intention to have a business grow its amount of owners from the beginning. This is something that you know from the beginning. So, yes, that's a pretty good start of where we're going to show the differentiation between regular business and startups. But startups are businesses, obviously, but again, it is to share with others at many different points. Okay, so I did say that a startup is most likely a technology company. I'm saying most likely because I'm sure that someone in the comments is going to say, well, it doesn't have to be. There's an exception to this rule. There's a startup company that's not a technology company that, I don't know, does something random. But in this case, in general, we're going to say that startup companies are technology based. To be honest, one of the reasons why startups start up can scale or increase or grow in the style and speed and fashion of which they can, if it goes right, is that it's technology based. So technology allows you to take a time investment of installing a piece of software, for instance, molding it with engineering skills, and then to create whatever the output is. But it's not a home run to say that once you create it that you're done, but that investment in time and energy and engineering to create the software, for instance, has a potential to receive exponential growth. So if you make a piece of software, that software with the correct bandwidth can serve many hundreds, thousands, millions of people. It is very difficult in a service oriented business that is person to person, or excuse me, in this instance it would be business to business. It is very difficult to do what technology businesses do in the startup realm, which is to scale quickly. And in this instance, in the startup realm, when they say scale, they mean to be able to grow. They mean to be able to take their objective of where they want to go and move forward upward, like the way a plane takes off from the runway. So they're flat on the land, and then once they pick up speed, it's completely almost a vertical launch. So the intention is that you do the groundwork at the beginning while the plane is still level, and then once you start taking off and your technology is already built, or your software is already built, or you determine that this business has viability, that you can grow exponentially by smaller investments than you did at the beginning. So it's very difficult in a traditional brick and mortar business and a service oriented business to get that same impact, because in those instances, many times the investment that you would have to make in order to grow is the same amount of return you will receive. It's not exponential in many instances. So that's why startups in most examples is going to be a tech company, because a tech company has the use of software, they have the use of technology to take their business and scale it in an exponential form, meaning many, many times over what they have initially invested in time or engineering to grow quickly. And this is what they are referring to when they say scaling in a startup area. So you'll see companies say scale quickly or scale exponentially. This just means their growth. So you can say growth in exchange for scaling. The next thing is specifically people want to know what fintech companies are, and I'm not going to go really, really deep into it, but fintech companies are just the same idea of what any other tech company would be because it's technology based, but the fin in fintech is referring to financial technology. So, this is an area these have the financial feature of technology that can do whatever service for the masses in an exponential form. So once they build the software, the technology, they can integrate it with, tens, hundreds, thousands of people, millions at the same time. And one of the things about financial tech companies or fintech companies is that a lot of them are graded on how quickly transactions can be done, how many transactions can be done at the same time. So it's just like, the traditional banking system. Finances are finances, money is money. But there now, as everybody knows, there are different types of money. There are different types of currencies. There are ways to exchange with one another that didn't exist many years ago. And since that is an emerging market, there are companies who are also emerging with the currencies as they begin to progress and the general population begins to take notice and interest and participate financially in these areas. That means that there's more growth and more areas for companies to find a problem to fix. That is the nature of any business. Find a problem to fix. Find a problem to make better. So when we speak of viability in the startup area, we speak of, do you fix a problem? Are you improving a situation? Are you creating something that is going to be useful to the masses that they would be interested in? And sometimes the problem doesn't have to be a big, huge problem that's causing every single person a headache. Improvements are businesses. If a business type that existed can be improved, then there's room for growth. There's room for improvement, and a business can take market share. Market share meaning, a group of people who are participating in that area financially who have an interest. So if you're improving something for people, then you have a potential to participate as a startup company because you have improved something. So these businesses that are startups, they only have a couple of rules. They need to improve something, fix something. They might create something that doesn't exist, but think of some of the things like that improve the way you did things before. Now we have ride share companies that originally competed with taxi companies. Now you have an option. Do you want to take a taxi or do you want to take a ride share service? Any of the ones. So it's not that they created something that didn't exist. They improved the situation in a way that could be exponentially grown by the creation of their software. So they created the software, they put it out in different cities. Okay, so now they don't have to rebuild this wheel. They just have to put it out so that other people could access it. And now their one software has been able to impact the masses exponentially. So one investment and then lots of exponential returns. To take it, I'm sure, just send them a check right now. I'm sure they'll take it. But a lot of things in the startup realm need energy, need people energy, and especially in the times where they have yet to discover viability, meaning whether or not they solve a problem, whether or not there is market share for them, whether or not this is a good idea to keep on going with. That's the long and short of what viability means. Viability is this a good enough idea to go forward with? Are we going to have any customers? Are there any customers that would be looking for the service that we have? Are we solving a problem? Are we improving a situation? These are the basics of viability, and no business can stay around if it doesn't do some of those, many of those, any of those, but most definitely in the startup world where technology is a factor, the investments are so heavy in order to get in the game that it's very difficult that if you don't fit the viability criteria, if you're not fixing the problem, improving the situation, etc., that it really doesn't make any sense to go forward, because the financial investments, not to mention time investments that you need, etc., from individuals to participate in the creation of these ideas, it just would be a waste not to determine this very early on. So, as I mentioned, there are several things that you can do to invest in a startup company. Yes, you can send them money. Yes, you can be their customer. But very early on, what they need is for individuals who have skill sets to participate in their business in a way that they can determine that viability. So basically, they need to get their platform or their software or their whatever built well enough that they can then make a determination on whether or not it's worth going forward with. Sometimes it's nearly impossible to determine this without building it first. It's kind of like you can guess what might happen if the software looked like this or the service looked like this, but most times you have to invest in creating it first. No one's paying you to do this, so sometimes the people around you end up being your first investors, and they invest in time. The person who creates the idea is called a founder. So they found out that they had a problem that they needed to fix, and they were like, hey, I have a good idea that I can do this with. And with that founder, they normally have the skills to identify an issue, whether it's them solving their own problems, whether it's them seeing someone else has a problem that needs to be fixed or sees an opportunity for improvement. Any of those things can be perfectly good logical reasons why someone would create a startup. The person who begins the game of the startup is called the founder. Now, like any good friend, like any good business person, like any good person, if you have a large task that you need to undertake and you know that it's too big for you, what do you do next? Phone a friend. You phone a friend, right? Sometimes it's a literal friend. Sometimes you literally pick up your phone and say, hey friend, hey brother, hey cousin, hey sister, hey whomever, I have this idea that I would like to undertake, and I was wondering, could you participate with me? This is a form of investment. This is not necessarily the financial investment that you think of that we spoke about earlier. Yes, of course, you can send them a check, but this is a form of investment, because what the founder is asking for you to do is, in exchange for your time, they are asking for you to participate in the growth of their startup. They want to create something that they're not able to fully accomplish on their own, and Another term in startup land is bootstrap. And this is a way to finance or a method of financing your business. So, as we talked about the airplane on the tarmac, there's a lot of flats before there's liftoff. So during this time, there is work being done. It's not like the airplane's sitting still. It's not like the startup is sitting still, but it hasn't gone into the air yet. It hasn't reached vertical yet. Well, during that time, a lot of companies resource use their local resources in the method called, I guess it's going to be bootstrapping, right? So bootstrapping is when you use your local resources more time than money. It is where you take care of things in the most financially responsible way possible, which means that sometimes you're going to ask for people's time. Sometimes you may need resources. A lot of times you do need resources. And resources in this instance, again, can be people's skills. It can be their time, participation. They can give you references to other people. Yes, you can get money, but these are the initial ways that a lot of companies get started. This is not, day one they woke up with an idea and then they called their local big, huge corporation and asked them for a multi-million-dollar check. Why would the multi-million-dollar company give them a check? What have they done? So during this phase of the startup, a lot of investments have to be made by people who already trust or like the person in the first place, or have a viable skill that they want to use in some capacity, and this just happens to be the one. So in the startup area, the bootstrapping method is a very, you know, good test of, I would say it's a good test of your karma. I mean, what have you been doing with your whole life, Mr. Founder, Mrs. Founder? Um, are you in a situation that now that you have an idea of your own and it's something that you want to take forward, can you pick up the phone and call your mom, dad, sister, brother, cousin, the person that you used to work with, your old friend from back, 10 years ago? Can you call these people and tell them that you have something that you want to do, that you feel that there is a need for, and that they're willing to participate? Have you been a good friend? I mean, this is a very specific question that founders end up asking themselves, but have they been the kind of person that other people would invest in? I mean, I'm sure you know of people that, they could ask you for $1 and you'd be like, I don't got it. I mean, because you already know that if you give them 25 cents and they say they're going to bring it back to you, you know you're never going to see it again. So what would be the point in investing anything in this person, no matter what kind of big ideas they have, no matter what kind of thoughts they think they, came up with? You just know that it's not worth it. So a lot of times as founders, people really get a chance to reap what they've sown throughout life, because this is an opportunity that they then are using the bootstrapping method, having to ask for resources within their local community. Are people willing to invest their time and their energy that they could be doing something else with into your thought about a business that hasn't had $1 come in, that doesn't have one single customer yet? Are you the type of person that people will invest in? Because character matters, and this is a great point in life where people find this out. So that is the bootstrapping method. Bootstrapping method is a financially responsible way to create the idea that the founder of the startup company has, in a way that will still allow creation of their software or their platform, but without needing or requiring there to be a lot of outside funding while they determine viability. Hope that worked. Okay. Seed investment. So seed investment. This is a little bit further on to the the growth steps. So really what every startup company wants is to succeed. That's what every company wants. It's what every person wants. It's what everything wants is to succeed. I mean, I'm sure someone's going to tell me, oh, there's an outlier. Okay, sometimes people and things want to suck. I got it. Got it. Okay, but I mean in general, most things and people and businesses want to succeed. So what they're going to look for is a plan on how to do so. Um, and in order to determine whether or not something is going to succeed, you have to create it, and then you have to put some dollars behind it to kind of push it where you want to go. Because ultimately, what is success to a startup company? Success to a startup company can be many levels, but like if we're looking at ultimate success, ultimate like this is where we always want it to be. Startup companies want to eventually be on a stock exchange, ringing the bell when they open, and they want to have a ticker symbol that represents their company, that represents millions of individuals who own stock in their business, representing multi-millions of people who use their resources or their business or their service. And the idea from the initial founder's brain has gone into the ethers and become something of its own. That's what that's what the ultimate idea for a startup is. So anyway, thank you so much for watching Fresh Factory TV. My name is Kira. You can find us on Instagram and all that other kind of fun stuff. And please feel free to hit the like button. Thank you so much for your time. Have a good evening, afternoon, or morning. Thank you for watching. Bye.